Hello all, the topic of this video is HTTP protocol. Let's see the full form first, okay? Full form is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It is an application layer protocol, okay? So it belongs to this layer here, application, and it allows web-based application to communicate and exchange data. Okay, so from the client to the server, the communication, okay, if the client is requesting some web pages, the server has to give some information in those web pages. That communication is possible with the help of HTTP. So because of that reason, it is also called the messenger of the web, and like our other protocols that we have seen, it is also a TCP/IP based protocol. Alright, and it is very useful in delivering contents. Like when we see any web page, we find that there are images, there are videos, there are audios, and sometimes we want to download documents. So that communication is possible with the help of this protocol. And the computers that communicate via the HTTP, when they use HTTP protocol, it is very important that they must speak the HTTP. They should be able to understand the HTTP protocol. Now let us look at this note here. This note is also present in the PDF that I have given to you. Okay, so let us first try and understand this diagram. It will be very easy for you to understand once you understand what is there in this diagram. Okay, so we have on one side we have the client, and on the other side we have the server. Okay, and server, we can communicate to the server via the script, and the server has its own database. Okay, so this linking, this communication is possible with the help of HTTP protocol. And the client requests some pages, some information, and the server, after receiving the request, gives out the response, gives the required info, and that communication is possible via the HTTP. Okay, so let's say it's a request response protocol, the client request and the server response, and it is based on client server based architecture. Okay, where web browsers, robots, and search engine, also called as HTTP clients, and the web server act as a server. Okay, so these are your clients, browser, search engine, and your web server is your server. Alright, now let us see the two terms. What is a client? Okay, so here the client sends a request. As we have already discussed, it sends the request to the server, and that is in the form of a request method. We'll see it in details, okay, these methods. So request method here, some URL and protocol version. Okay, so this format we'll see. For the timing, let's understand that it's just a request. Client sends a request to the server in the form of a request method, and server on the other hand accepts that request in response with these status line, including the message protocol version and all this information. Okay, so this again we'll see later in a diagram format, which will make it more clear. Okay, so please go through the note. This note is there. Okay, and in my video I've given you some extra information, so please watch the videos properly, and all the extra diagrams, extra information that I'm giving you, please note it down. Next is the three very, very important things about the HTTP. Now again, you will not find this in the note, but this is very important. Okay, so I would like you all to please take snapshot of this and write this down as your and add this to your note. Very, very important. Okay, so the first thing about HTTP is it is connectionless. Connectionless, when you hear, you think that it doesn't maintain a connection. That means after making the request, immediately after the request is done, the client disconnect. Okay, disconnection is done, and when the response is ready, see, after the request the response has to come. So after the request is done, there is disconnection of the connection, and then when the response is ready, again the connection is re-established. Okay, so there is the connection doesn't stay for long, so that is why we call it connectionless. So that is one important feature of HTTP. Second is that it can deliver any sort of data as long as the two computers are able to read it. Okay, they should understand similar format. And number three is, again, this is also very important. Just like connection, it doesn't maintain the connection. Similarly, it doesn't maintain state. State means the client and the server know about each other just during the current request, and the moment it closes, okay, the two computers want to connect again, they have to provide the information to each other anew. Anew meaning here as if the connection is established for the first time. Why? Because they don't maintain a state. The moment the connection is over, the state is also lost, and if you have to reconnect, you have to provide the information again. The full state information has to be provided again. So these three are very important points. Please make a neat note. Now here is our request response cycle. So this diagram shows how the HTTP works. Okay, so here on this side we have the client and here we have the server. So as we have discussed, the user will send the request. Okay, so it will he'll type something in his browser like this. He'll look for this particular page and that will go as a request. Okay, as an HTTP message, it will go to the server. Server will see the request and it will respond, and that is also an HTTP message. Okay, so this is called request, and from the other side response. It is called the request response cycle. Okay, with the help of the HTTP message. Now here we have the format of the message. All right, we have just seen the request and response goes, okay, in the form of the HTTP message. Now this is how the message will look like. Okay, these are the three important components of a typical HTTP message. It will be for request also and response also. So what are the three components? The first is the starting line, and then it will be followed by a list of headers, and finally the body, what is being asked. Okay, now HTTP message is purely a plain text message. Okay, it supports plain text information. It's very easy to read, but sometimes it may contain some binary data also. So after looking at the format, now let's see the different example, the content. Okay, now this information in the three section, we've seen the three parts. Okay, in the three parts, it will vary depending on the HTTP message, whether the HTTP message is a request or response. Accordingly, they will have different components in these three different parts. So in front of us, we have a request message. Okay, how the client sends a request message to the server. So you can see the three parts again. Okay, the top line has this content which specifies the method, okay, the path, and what version of HTTP is there. And then in the second part, we have the name, value, the headers. So headers are basically name value pairs. So all the headers are there and what are the values. And then the last, which says the body, okay, it is what content does the message hold. And here is an example that this is a request. Okay, and it will be slightly different from the response. Response also will have three parts, no doubt. Okay, and in the response, in the first line, you will find the version. It will be starting with the version, and plus the status code. Now this you have seen in the note also. I'll be discussing a little later. Okay, so it will respond back with the version and the code. What is the code of the server? Is it ready or some problem is there? It will be depicted here. And after that, the headers. What are the name of the header and the value of the header? Okay, and then in the last part, whatever request was made, that the body of that file will be here in the last part. So this is how your format of the request and response message will vary. Here is an example of request HTTP message. The first one, that is request. Okay, so this is general format. So you know that in the first part we have the method. So method here is a command that tells the server what to do, what kind of request it is. Okay, so that is specified in method. For example, now this list is also there in the note. Okay, we'll discuss it. So here what method? So that might be either get, post. You'll see in the list there are some more, delete, all that. Okay, so that is the first part of the request message. And after that we have the URL, that means where is the resource located and the version. And then we have the headers. Now there are more headers in this example. Only 3 headers are shown. In that list you will find a list of headers. Okay, so here is the example. Now here the method is get. Get means get some info from the server. So they are requesting some get meaning get a page. So in this case, what page? It is under product, my product.html, and then the version, and they are also providing the header. Now header, 3 headers are there. Host means the name of the website, accept language, what language, and then accept what kind of data you are going to accept. So here it is a HTML data. Okay, so sometimes we can also specify MIME, if you remember MIME. Okay, so those media files, if that has to be mentioned, then it will be file type image / GIF, file type / extension. Okay, so this is how request is set. So after request, here is an example of the response, how the server is going to respond. Okay, so here we have the first line, which will give you the version and the status code. As we have discussed, status is very important. So it will tell the client if the request has succeeded or not. So status will tell you whether success or no success, or some failure, or some problem with the server. Okay, so it might have the values like the 200, and you are very familiar with this 404. That means if the status returns 404, it means file not found. Okay, and then the header value files and all that. Okay, so these two are same. So here let us see the example. So it is giving you the version of HTTP, and here it is saying 200, meaning that it is okay, the response is okay, no problem with the server. And here you can see 3 headers, similar headers, and then what is the file that is being requested. It is specified here. Now let us look at the headers, the headers and the methods that we have seen. First of all, we'll start with HTTP version. You have seen in the first line they specify the HTTP version. So it is basically a numbering scheme which indicates the version of the protocol. So it might be like it will return HTTP 1.0 or HTTP 1.1. okay, so this is what you see in the first line of the HTTP message. And then next is this you'll find in the note. Each of these methods are important. Okay, this is how the request message takes place. So these are the methods we have seen. Get, then instead of get you can have head, and all this long list is there. So these are your methods, HTTP methods. Now get method, as we have discussed, it is used to retrieve information from the given server. Okay, so it can be any page, any file that is there in the server. Then we head, then the next method is head, which is same as get, but it only transfers the status line and headers section only. Okay, then we have post. So get is like getting something, and post like sending something. You want to, let's say, send some file to the server, you want to post something. So in that case you have to send the data. So in that case you will use method post, so send data to the server. Then put then replaces all the current representation of the target address with the uploaded. That means it's like replacing. Alright, so that is, for that you have to use put. And delete is, you know what it does, it removes whatever was you have sent earlier. And connect is to establish a tunnel, it's a connection to the server. And then options describe the communication option for the target sources. So all the methods are given in the note, please go through. These are the methods of the HTTP. Okay, so get method, you'll see this is an example how get method works. Okay, so first of all you specify the get method name, and then the file, the HTTP, and these are the headers. Okay, headers also I've given you a long list is there, please go through. So some headers, let's discuss. This is user agent, what is the version of the browser, and then the host, then the language, what kind of encoding it is, what is the status of the connection. So all that is your headers. Please go through that list. Okay, so that is your get method. And and one more important thing is your status code. You remember that when the response comes from the server, it is accompanied with the first line is HTTP followed by the status code. Now this is also very important, the different status code. What does it mean? So the first series is starting with 1, it's a 3-digit integer, where the first digit of the status code defines the class of response. You can see 1, 2, 3, so each defining the class of response, and the last 2 digit like different types, do not have any categorizing rules. So if 1xx, if it starts with 1, it means the request was received and the process is continuing. That means the request is granted. If it starts with 2, it means the action was successfully received. Whatever action was asked for, it is received, understood, and accepted. If it is starting with 3, it means further action must be taken in order to complete the request. And if your status starts with 4, that means problem. It means the request contains some incorrect syntax and hence cannot be fulfilled. And 5 also is a problem. It says that, now 4 says it's a client error. And 5 says it's a server error. It means the server has failed to fulfill an apparently invalid request. And that is it. Thank you very much.